All right, so we're back. And today we're going to be taking a deep dive into some pretty heavy stuff.
Oh, yeah.
The JFK assassination.
Yuck.
You know, it seems like everyone and their uncle has a theory,
Right.
but you've brought some sources to the table that I haven't seen before. So, legal journals,
Interesting.
book excerpts, articles. We even have some song lyrics in here.
Wow.
We're going way beyond the Warren Report today to
Okay.
explore those less mainstream narratives and hopefully uncover something new.
Well, it's really fascinating how this event, even decades later, still generates so much debate and discussion.
Yeah.
And I think what's particularly interesting about the selection of sources that you've got here
Mm-hmm.
is that they really challenge us to think critically about how we construct narratives,
Okay.
especially around these major historical events.
Yeah. And, you know, speaking of challenging narratives,
Right.
to kick things off, we're going to go back to 1964.
Okay.
I found this piece by Vincent J. Salandria, and he was a lawyer who actually attended Arlen Specter's speech,
Oh, wow.
where Specter laid out the Warren Commission's findings.
Okay.
What's crazy is that Salandria was already publicly skeptical
Oh, really?
of the single shooter theory at that time.
So early on, he's already like,
Yeah, he was like, nah, I don't think so.
I'm not buying this.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So while a lot of people were, sort of taking the Warren Report at face value,
Right.
Salandria was already starting to poke holes in it.
Yeah.
He was questioning the evidence,
Yeah.
particularly the idea that Oswald could have acted alone.
Right.
And he even, directly challenged Specter during the Q&A,
Wow.
suggesting that, there's going to be multiple shooters.
So he was way ahead of the curve on that.
Oh, he was ahead of his time, for
Yeah.
sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. But there's another theory in here that I found particularly intriguing,
Right.
and it's called the transparent conspiracies.
Transparent conspiracy.
Yeah, have you heard of this?
I have heard of this.
Okay, so
Mhm.
Professor Thomas Caton suggests that the Warren Report itself
Okay.
was designed to reveal the assassination as a conspiracy,
Okay.
despite seemingly trying to prove a lone gunman.
It's like a reverse psychology type of thing.
Yeah,
Interesting.
almost like they were hiding it in plain sight.
Yeah, like hiding in plain sight.
Does that even make sense?
Well, it might sound a little counterintuitive at first,
Okay.
but if you think about it,
Yeah,
the Warren Report,
right.
even if you accept all of its conclusions,
Mm.
it's full of inconsistencies and contradictions.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, for example,
Yeah,
the illegal removal of the presidential limousine from Texas,
right.
which, that's the jurisdiction of the crime, right?
Yeah.
That raises serious questions about procedure
Yeah.
and jurisdiction, and just like,
Yeah, why would they do that?
why would they do that? Exactly. And then you have
Yeah.
this like mountain of evidence within the report itself that points towards, a larger conspiracy.
Right.
It's almost as if they were,
Like, come on, look closer, guys.
daring people to look closer. Yeah.
Yeah.
To see beyond the official narrative.
Okay, but if there was a conspiracy,
Right.
who was behind it?
Yeah.
And what did they have to gain?
Yeah. That's the big question, right?
Right.
Who benefited?
Well, the typical suspects, right? The
Right.
mafia, Cuba, even Russia, they've all been tossed around.
All the usual suspects.
Right.
Right.
But Salandria in this legal journal, Fair Play,
Okay.
presents some pretty compelling arguments against those theories.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So he doesn't think it was any of them.
He doesn't buy it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So what does he say?
Well,
What's his argument?
he argues that those theories, while tempting,
Okay.
don't really hold up under scrutiny.
Hmm.
He's like, come on, think about it.
Yeah.
You know?
He's like, would Castro or Russia
Right.
risk a nuclear war?
Yeah. With such a transparent assassination.
Right.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense.
And then he's like, would the FBI and CIA really cover for them?
Yeah.
It seems highly unlikely.
Right. Those are really good points.
Yeah.
Yeah. So who does he think did it?
Well, he points the finger
Okay.
at those within the U.S. government
Okay.
who opposed Kennedy's policies,
All right.
particularly his move away from military interventionism.
Interesting.
That's a bold claim.
It is a bold claim.
Is there enough evidence to support that?
Well, his argument is complex and nuanced,
Okay.
and he doesn't really offer any smoking guns.
Okay.
He primarily focuses on the political climate of the time,
Hmm.
highlighting the tension between
Yeah.
Kennedy's vision of de-escalation
Okay.
and kind of the more hawkish elements
Right.
within the government and the military.
Right.
And he suggests that, those who felt threatened
Okay.
by Kennedy's peace initiatives
Right.
might have seen his removal
Okay.
as necessary
To protect their own interests.
to protect their own interests.
Exactly. So we're moving away from the whodunit
Right.
and into the whydunit territory.
Exactly. And I think that's what makes these alternative narratives so fascinating.
Yeah.
They force us to look beyond the surface
Right.
to examine the motivations,
Yeah.
the power dynamics
Yeah.
that might have shaped the events leading up to the assassination.
It seems like every piece of evidence we uncover just leads to more questions.
It does, doesn't it?
Which brings us to
Yeah.
the media's role in all of this.
Okay.
We have this excerpt from a 1969
Mikey.
Playboy interview.
Playboy?
Yeah.
Interesting.
With Jim Garrison,
Okay.
who was the New Orleans district attorney,
Right.
who actually prosecuted someone,
Wow.
Clay Shaw,
Clay Shy. Yeah.
for conspiracy in the JFK assassination.
Okay.
He was deeply critical
I can imagine.
of how the media handled the case.
I bet.
Yeah. So he went beyond just criticizing the media's coverage.
Okay.
He accused major outlets
Like NBC's.
and Newsweek
Newsweek.
of actively working to discredit his investigation. Wow. Yeah, he claimed they were spreading disinformation,
Right.
tampering with witnesses,
Right.
and even offering bribes
Oh, my God.
to silence those who might challenge the official narrative.
So he's saying there's like a
Yeah, he's not holding back.
active cover-up.
Yeah.
Wow, he didn't hold back.
But this ties into Solandre's point
Right.
about controlling the narrative.
Exactly.
Right? If the media was complicit in shaping public perception
Right.
after the assassination,
Right.
that's a huge deal.
That is huge. Yeah, absolutely.
So Garrison believed
Okay.
that the media, perhaps unknowingly,
Okay.
became a tool for those
All right.
seeking to suppress the truth about the assassination.
Okay.
He saw a clear connection between the media's portrayal of events
Mm-hmm.
and the public's willingness to accept the Warren Report's conclusions,
Yeah.
even with all of its inconsistencies.
It's interesting how, certain narratives can take hold
right.
and become so ingrained in the public consciousness
Yeah.
that it's very difficult to kind of like
To challenge them.
dislodge them. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
And it gets even darker.
Oh, no.
Garrison went on to warn about America's future,
Okay.
calling the assassination a symptom of what he called
Okay.
a proto-fascist state
A proto-fascist state.
driven by the military-industrial complex.
Wow.
That's a chilling thought.
Yeah, that's heavy.
Basically saying that
So he's saying that,
they were willing to sacrifice human life for the state.
yeah, that they're willing to go to any lengths
Yeah.
to protect their power.
Yeah, it's pretty intense.
To understand Garrison's perspective, I think we have to kind
Mhm.
of consider the context of the time.
Yeah.
This was 1969,
Right.
the height of the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
And there was,
Yeah.
a growing sense of disillusionment
Right.
with the government and its actions.
Yeah.
So Garrison saw the Kennedy assassination
Okay.
as kind of this turning point,
I
this
see.
moment where the
Yeah.
state demonstrated its willingness to use,
Okay.
extreme measures to protect its power.
Wow. So we've got these
Yeah,
powerful forces potentially at play.
right.
Those who opposed Kennedy's policies,
Mm-hmm.
the media shaping public perception, and
yeah.
this looming idea of a proto-fascist state.
It's like a perfect storm.
Right.
Yeah.
Where does Lee Harvey Oswald fit into all of this?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
Was he a patsy?
Yeah.
A player?
Or something else entirely.
Yeah.
It's hard to say.
Well, Garrison firmly believed
Okay.
that Oswald did not shoot Kennedy.
He did not shoot Kennedy.
Yeah.
Okay.
He saw Oswald as a pawn,
A pawn.
deliberately set up to take the fall
Okay.
for a much larger conspiracy.
Interesting.
And he's got some interesting evidence to support that theory.
Oh, does he?
Yeah.
Lay it on me.
So he points to Oswald's history with the CIA,
Okay.
his training at Atsugi Air Force Base in Japan, a suppressed photo from the Cuban embassy in Mexico City,
Wow.
and even financial assistance he received from the State Department.
So there's all these connections
Yeah.
to intelligence agencies.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, so this is where the decoy theory comes in.
The decoy theory.
Yeah.
Garrison argued that Oswald was intentionally fed information
Yeah.
and placed in compromising situations
Right.
to make him appear guilty.
To make him look bad.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was all part of a carefully orchestrated plan
Mm-hmm.
to divert attention from the real assassins.
So Oswald was just a patsy in
Yeah.
this elaborate scheme.
Yeah.
Wow.
So even if we entertain the idea that Oswald wasn't the shooter,
Right.
Garrison still believed he played a crucial role
Okay.
in the conspiracy,
Yeah.
whether he was aware of it or not.
Whether she knew or not.
Yeah.
Wow.
This next piece adds a whole new layer of intrigue.
Okay.
You remember that infamous magic bullet theory?
Oh, yeah, the magic ball. The Warren report claimed that a single bullet
Right.
passed through Kennedy,
Yeah.
then hit Governor Connally, causing 7 wounds
Wow.
and breaking bones
Okay.
before emerging virtually unscathed.
It sounds pretty unbelievable
Right.
when you put it that way.
Yeah.
It does sound a little far-fetched.
Yeah, and Garrison agreed.
Yeah.
He thought it was absurd.
Yeah.
And he even suggested that the bullet presented as evidence
Okay.
might have been planted.
Planted like a fake bullet.
Yeah.
Oh.
He argued that, if the conspirators were capable of planting evidence, they could just as easily have tampered with other crucial parts of the investigation.
Yeah, like what else did they mess with?
Right.
Yeah.
It's like trying to solve a puzzle where some of the pieces are missing and others might be fake.
And some are fake.
It makes it nearly impossible to get a clear picture.
Yeah, it's like a rigged game.
Yeah.
Yeah, almost.
Speaking of missing pieces, we have to talk about the grassy knoll.
The grassy knoll.
It's practically a character in this whole saga.
Right. Everyone's heard of the grassy knoll.
So Garrison claimed to have evidence that placed multiple shooters on the grassy knoll, firing at Kennedy from different angles.
So he's picturing like a coordinated attack.
Yeah, like a...
with shooters positioned strategically.
Triangulated to create a crossfire.
So that Kennedy would have no chance.
Yeah.
Wow.
He even suggested that these assassins were in contact with each other.
Okay.
Via radio.
Via radio?
Hinting at a level of sophistication that goes far beyond the actions of a lone gunman.
It sounds like something out of a spy thriller.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But the grassy knoll has become such a focal point for conspiracy theories.
It has.
Is there any tangible evidence to support Garrison's claims? Or is it just speculation?
Well, that's the tricky part, isn't it? There's a lot of conflicting information. Eyewitness accounts that don't really align.
Right.
And even evidence that seems to have vanished over the years.
Yeah.
It makes it so difficult.
To separate fact from fiction.
To separate fact from fiction, exactly.
And that seems to be a recurring theme in all of this.
It does seem that way, yeah.
Conflicting information, missing evidence.
Right.
And a sense that something just doesn't add up.
Like something's not quite right.
It's enough to make anyone question what they believe about the JFK assassination.
And that questioning is essential, I think.
Right.
Whether we ultimately agree with Garrison's conclusions or not.
Right.
His investigation forces us to confront the possibility that the official narrative might not be the whole story.
Yeah.
And that's a powerful and unsettling idea.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy.
It is.
So we're going to pick up with this in part 2.
Okay. Sounds good.
It's like we're peeling back the layers of an onion, and with every layer, more questions arise.
Yeah, definitely.
What strikes me is how deeply this event impacted people.
Oh, yeah.
Not just in the immediate aftermath, but in the years that followed.
Absolutely. And Salandria really captures that sense of trauma.
Yeah.
And disillusionment.
Yeah.
In his writings, he talks about how the assassination really paralyzed the American people, left them feeling helpless and distrustful. He even uses the term alienation.
Wow.
To describe the kind of breakdown of trust.
Okay.
Not just in the government, but in personal relationships as well.
Yeah, that's interesting.
It's like this ripple effect.
It's almost like he's describing like a collective PTSD.
Right, exactly.
This shared sense of shock and disbelief.
Yeah, this trauma that permeated society after the assassination.
And what's interesting is how Salandria connects this trauma to the manipulation of public perception.
Right.
He argues that those in power deliberately used the assassination to create fear and despair, ultimately shaping the narrative to suit their own agenda.
So it's not just about who pulled the trigger.
Right.
It's about who controlled the story afterward.
Exactly.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Salandria suggests that the media, instead of challenging the official narrative, actually played a key role in reinforcing it.
Wow.
He argues that they presented, this simplified, easily digestible story. That, while comforting to a traumatized public, ultimately obscure the truth.
He even draws parallels to Aldous Huxley's Brave New World.
Brave New World, wow.
Suggesting that those in power might be using similar tactics to create a society of willing slaves.
That's a pretty heavy comparison.
It is.
But it really reflects the depth of Salandria's concern. He saw the assassination as a symptom of this much larger problem. The erosion of critical thinking, the manipulation of information, and the rise of what he called a technological elite
A technological elite?
Yeah, who could control the flow of knowledge and ultimately shape society itself.
It's fascinating how these early critiques of the media landscape are still relevant today.
Oh, absolutely.
We're constantly bombarded with information.
Yeah, information overload.
And it's becoming increasingly difficult to discern fact from fiction.
It's more important than ever, I think.
Yeah.
To be critical consumers of information.
Right.
To question our sources and to seek out diverse perspectives.
Right. We can't afford to just passively accept the narratives presented to us.
Exactly, especially when those narratives come from institutions that might have their own agendas.
So we've got Salandria warning about media manipulation and societal control.
Right.
Then we have Jim Garrison, who claims he experienced that manipulation firsthand.
Oh, wow.
He goes into quite a bit of detail in this Playboy interview about the challenges he faced during his investigation.
What stood out to you about Garrison's account?
Well, aside from the fact that it's in Playboy, which seems like an odd choice.
It's an interesting choice.
For a serious interview about the JFK assassination.
You wouldn't expect to find that there?
I was struck by his frustration with NBC.
NBC?
He accuses them of flat-out sabotage.
Gosh, wow.
Claiming they offered witnesses money and other incentives to discredit his investigation.
So he's saying they were actively trying to undermine him?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
He doesn't mince words, does he?
He does not mince words, no.
Garrison saw NBC and potentially other media outlets as complicit in a cover-up.
A cover-up? Wow.
Actively working to protect those responsible for the assassination. He even goes as far as say they were working with the CIA.
Wow, that's a serious accusation.
And that really feeds into the whole atmosphere of distrust that was brewing at the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Remember, this was 1969? The Vietnam War was raging. People were already questioning the government's honesty and motives.
Lex, there was already that seed of doubt.
Garrison's accusations just fueled that fire.
It's important to note, though,
Yeah.
that Garrison himself was a controversial figure.
Right.
He was accused of being overzealous, of bending the rules,
Okay.
even of manufacturing evidence to support his theories.
So there's that, too.
Right. So it's a bit of a
Yeah.
he said, she said situation.
But whether you believe him or not,
Right.
his investigation and his very public battle with the media certainly raised some important questions.
Yeah, it does make you wonder.
Who controls the narrative?
Right, who's shaping the story?
And how easily the truth can be manipulated.
And how much we can actually trust what we're being told.
He certainly put his career and possibly even his life on the line by going up against such powerful forces.
That's true. He was very outspoken.
He even mentions receiving death threats. That's the thing about conspiracies.
What is that?
They thrive in an environment of fear and distrust.
Yeah.
And when you start digging into something like the JFK assassination, you inevitably encounter those who would rather the truth remain buried.
It can be dangerous to get too close to the truth sometimes.
It makes you wonder just how deep this rabbit hole goes.
It does, doesn't it?
If Oswald wasn't the lone gunman who was pulling the strings.
Yeah, who orchestrated all of this.
Garrison offers some intriguing insights into the possible involvement of organized crime figures like Jack Ruby, and even elements within the government itself.
So he's implicating some pretty powerful people here.
Yeah.
Interesting.
He even suggests that Kennedy's assassination was a direct result of his attempts to rein in the CIA.
The CIA.
Yeah, and their covert operations, implying that those within the intelligence community might have had a motive to remove him from power.
So he's saying that Kennedy was getting too close
to
something that they didn't want him to know.
That's a terrifying thought.
It is a scary thought.
That the very institutions meant to protect us could be involved in something so sinister.
It really makes you question who you can trust.
But where's the proof?
Right.
Is there any concrete evidence to support these claims?
Yeah.
Or is it all just speculation?
Well, that's where things get murky.
Right.
A lot of the evidence Garrison relied on was circumstantial eyewitness accounts that were later contradicted or documents that have since disappeared.
Right.
It makes it very difficult to build a solid case.
Which brings us back to that central question.
Yeah.
How much do we really know?
Right. What is the truth?
And who are we willing to trust?
Exactly. And I think that's the most valuable takeaway from all of this.
Okay.
We need to be skeptical, not just of the official narrative, but of all narratives, even the alternative ones. We need to be willing to examine the evidence, to weigh the different perspectives, and to come to our own conclusions.
So where do we go from here?
That's a good question.
We've explored these complex theories, we've questioned the official narrative, and we've uncovered a lot of disturbing possibilities.
Yeah.
But we're still left with that nagging question, what really happened? It's mind-boggling to think that even with all the investigations and the research and everything, there are still so many unanswered questions about the JFK assassination.
Yeah. And I think
it feels like every answer just leads to more questions.
That's the nature of these complex historical events.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
There's rarely a clear-cut definitive answer.
Right.
What we're left with are these pieces of a puzzle, some of which might be missing, or even intentionally obscured.
Speaking of missing pieces,
we
can't talk about the JFK assassination without mentioning Jack Ruby.
Jack Ruby, that's right.
Garrison was convinced that Ruby's murder of Oswald was a deliberate act to silence him. To prevent him from revealing what he knew.
Wow, so he's saying it was a hit.
Oh, yeah.
A deliberate hit.
Garrison completely dismissed the idea that Ruby was just a lone wolf, driven by grief or rage. He saw Ruby's actions as part of a larger conspiracy, a calculated hit to protect those higher-ups.
So he thinks Ruby was taking orders from someone?
Oh, yeah.
Interesting.
And there are definitely some strange connections there.
Oh, yeah, like what?
Well, Ruby had ties to organized crime figures.
Organized crime, okay.
Some of whom were linked to Oswald.
To Oswald?
Garrison even suggested that Ruby and Oswald might have known each other. Before the assassination.
Before?
Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting.
And let's not forget Ruby's own words.
Right, he did say some interesting things.
He repeatedly expressed fear for his life.
He did?
And even hinted at a larger conspiracy.
What did he say?
Claiming that powerful people were involved.
Powerful people?
In Kennedy's death.
So he knew something.
Yeah, it's almost as if he knew he was a dead man walking. Sacrificing himself to protect a secret that could bring down the whole system.
It's certainly a dramatic narrative.
It is.
And it really feeds into the larger themes we've been discussing. Power manipulation. And the lengths to which people will go to protect their interests.
It's a sobering thought.
It is.
But it also brings us back to Salandria's analysis of who might have benefited from Kennedy's death.
Right, cui bono, as they say.
He points the finger at those who opposed his policies, particularly his attempts to de-escalate the Cold War and rein in the military-industrial complex.
That's right. Kennedy was challenging the status quo. And those in positions of power don't always take kindly to that.
And he wasn't just talking about abstract policy disagreements. Kennedy had direct confrontation
with powerful figures like General Curtis LeMay. Who advocated for a preemptive nuclear strike against the Soviet Union.
Wow, so these were high-stakes disagreements.
Yeah, it makes you wonder if those who felt threatened by Kennedy's vision might have resorted to drastic measures to silence him.
It's a chilling thought. But it's one we can't ignore.
Yeah.
The possibility that elements within the state itself, the very institutions meant to protect us, could be involved in such a heinous act is deeply disturbing.
It really is. We've gone down a lot of rabbit holes today.
We have.
And we've explored some pretty dark possibilities.
Some dark corners of history.
But I think the most important takeaway from all of this is the importance of questioning. Of not blindly accepting the official narrative. And of seeking out alternative perspectives.
Exactly. We may never have all the answers about the JFK assassination. But the pursuit of truth is essential.
It's about holding those in power accountable, challenging our assumptions, and refusing to let history be rewritten by those who might have something to hide.
So, after diving deep into all of this, where do you stand now?
Where do I stand?
Do you still accept the official story?
That's a tough one.
Or do you see something more,
I think,
something that challenges the very foundation of what we believe?
It's clear that there's more to the story than what we've been told.
About history and power.
And I think it's up to each of us to keep digging. To keep asking questions.
To find our own truth.
Exactly. The evidence is out there. The theories are plentiful. And the truth, as elusive as it may be, is waiting to be uncovered.
I think that's a perfect note to end on.
I agree.
Keep asking those tough questions.
Absolutely.
Keep digging for those hidden truths. And never be afraid to challenge the accepted narrative.
That's what makes these deep dives so fascinating.
So crucial.
And so important.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for having me.